Here we are out in the garage again. Got the hound dog out here with me. Anyhow, the day before yesterday I put the motor back in, and of course everything changes when you're doing this stuff and you do different motor mounts and stuff. It was so tight back here that I had to remove the air deflector, or whatever you want to call it, for the oil cooler and that back piece of tin, because it was too close. And I don't know if it'll focus or zoom in. See if I can get it to show. I don't know if it'll come out. I don't think so. Anyways, the bell housing's up against the or the top of the block is up against the body, so I'm gonna have to change that around. But I'm gonna fit this rear apron on. I'm gonna pull this piece of tin off and then put that rear apron on, and then once I get that fit, I cut the end of this exhaust off here, cut that flange off to do a V-band, so that'll work out pretty nice. And yeah, this pipe, I don't like these slip fits. So it's loose down on this slip fit joint down here as well. So I have 2-bolt flanges, kind of like on the heads, you know. This is where I had my exhaust leak. Gasket blew out, and that's why I stopped driving. Because with the fuel injection, you got exhaust leaks like that. Well, plus exhaust leaks are very annoying, so I stopped driving it due to that. But yeah, I'll put flanges on these and gaskets so they don't leak. That's going to be a little tight to put a flange right in here, but I'll figure it out. So let me put you guys back on the stand, and we'll get this rear apron put on. Yeah, this motor sure was a good runner. If I recall right, this had a 86A cam made by Webb Camshafts. And what else did it have? It had the 80mm chromoly crank. And I'm wanting to say 5.4 rods. And 90.5 pistons. And I set the compression ratio to 8.4 to 1, if I do recall correctly. 4 boost. I just got a new set of rings in. When I first was putting this thing together, I set all the ring gaps with the rings that came with the pistons. And of course, putting one on, I've always put them on by hand. And I bought the right tool for the job. Ended up breaking a ring, so I bought the only rings I could find were chromoly rings. And it said right on the package, do not file rings. Well, you kind of have to file them to get them where you want, especially when you're doing it for boost. And I was also doing some reading on chromoly rings, how they don't really break in that well. I didn't notice any abnormal blow-by or anything like that, but I bought a new set from CB Performance. I believe they do have one chromoly ring in them, the top ring, but the other's cast. Not sure about the oil control rings. And of course, got one down here underneath the oil pressure sending unit. Alright, there's that piece of tin. Give you a little closer look at this thing while that's off. So there's where I notched out from my full flow oil system. Look at all the cobwebs on this thing. And I had bought in some of those, I don't remember what they're called. Since I don't have heater boxes, they were a piece of sheet metal that come up, close this off. Well, it wouldn't fit with the header, so my now loose wire tie, it was tighter. Who knows if that was slop in the pipe. And then this side of the rear breastplate tin, or whatever you want to call it, I don't know if you'll be able to see it. Right back there, there's another hole. That's for the crank trigger from the dub shop. So I sent my pulley over to him, and let's see if we can see it. There you go. The hidden crank-fired 36-to-1 tooth back there. So I had crank-fired ignition on this for a short period of time. Nasty, look at that. Exhaust leak, gross. Had to beat this thing out to fit around the Type 3 tin, I believe. Got a factory thermostat for the flaps in the back. I drilled some holes in this off of a factory, made a template for the air flappers on this thermostat control. This piece I printed on the 3D printer. It's holding up good. We'll see how it holds up to boost. And obviously the Phytech, there's a few videos on that. Little bell crank linkage I made. And then I'm wanting to say this distributor cap's off a Saab as well. So Saab distributor cap, Saab turbo, man, what other Saab parts am I put on this thing? And I ended up cutting this back piece of tin here. I had my spark plug wire for the coil coming through it, and I actually had my coil mounted underneath the body back here, and I was trying to, you know, make everything as hidden as possible, and it definitely did the job. But, you know, thinking forward, if you're driving this thing, you don't want to have a problem and try to crawl underneath the car to try to fix that kind of shit. So I had it mounted up here before, so I just had nuts and bolts going through it. I'll put a rivet nut in there, and I'll remount my coil up here. Just make it more accessible. Might as well make it easy to work on. It is a Volkswagen. It's already complicated enough with all the bullshit I've added to it. But that's the name of the game. You gotta do what you want and make it your own. As far as that back channel goes, or the piece of tin back there for the back of the engine back there, I'm not sure what I'm going to do now. I'm probably going to have to make something custom, but time will definitely tell. It's one of those things you don't really know until you get into it. Alright, let's go underneath, see how tight this exhaust is fitting. It's still pretty tight. You can see where it was rubbing before. We got, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 inch of clearance. I might have to modify this exhaust a little more. It's fairly tight up top. At least I got a finger's width on this pipe here. Let's see, how am I going to go about doing this? Sometimes it's easier just to start from scratch, but I'm not doing that with this. I'll modify it for sure before I do anything else. I'm not starting from scratch making my own header, at least right now. This is the pain in the ass with doing a transmission raise. Look at how far up everything is for getting to the valve adjust. It is just tight. Tight, tight, tight. Can't even stick a finger in between there. Let's see how the other side is. Luckily with this, the adjusters are on the bottom because they're ratio rockers. This side we got more clearance, which is good. Oh, another thing I put in was the my homemade mid-mount. That's what it's sitting on right now. I figure before I put the motor in, let's put that in there. And luckily on the sump right here, that'll work perfect for oil return line, I think, for the turbocharger. I'm gonna have to pull my fenders out too and bolt those on for clearance when I do that turbo. But I think before I do that, I'm gonna put this thing on the quick jacks and really raise it up, so that way I can have some more clearance underneath versus being on the ground doing this shit upside down. And let's see, I think that's, you can kind of see how far I've had to cut out the body. For different exhaust systems, I did the same on the other side. That's even more drastic. That's when I had the supercharged engine in, and the engine out of my aunt's dune buggy, but yeah, it should be plenty of clearance to come up. But you know what, this thing, it's been hitting the front, hitting the back. As you can see, that thing's been re-welded. I think half the nuts are stripped. So the car is not perfect, which I'm sure everyone's seen by now. It's got its issues. But what car doesn't, that's old and had previous owners and been driven hard? Alright, well, I guess I'll think about the next step here and put you guys back on in a minute. Alright, let's try doing a little fitting of this rear tin. Now, to be honest, most of the fighting that I've had to do with some of this engine fitment, with it being raised up, is a few problems, mostly self-inflicted, I would say. Being in a rush, trying just to hurry up and get it on the road, and too excited to try and drive it, you know, and whatever else, but that's all my own fault. And you live and you learn. Now it's nice to be able to reflect on things and take your time and do things the right way. So far the engine bay seals in here are still fitting nice, the shelves. My wife's Bug 62, that was the last car that I put a motor in the old-fashioned way of putting it in from the bottom. After doing this a few times, I almost forgot what the hell I was doing. It's a little tight over here. This side looked like it was fitting pretty well. And before, when I was putting this in, I was just leaving this piece of tin on the engine and then just sliding the whole back half on, and then super gluing this back here by itself. I might have to trim the corners of this tin, maybe, I don't know. I'll have to fit it in. Anyways, most of the problems that I'm running into with this, before I get too sidetracked like I usually do, was A, being in too much of a rush, B, not doing it before, so kind of like, I don't know, in the past I've called it the intimidation factor, you know, you ain't done it, you're not necessarily scared, but you're used to doing, you know, the things that you've done. So you have confidence in that. And when you haven't done it before, you don't have that same confidence, right? So one thing I've learned over the years building shit is if it's done by one man or woman, whatever, it can be done by another. Don't be scared. It can always be fixed. It can always be changed, rebuilt. And when you're working on custom stuff, everything turns out to be custom, so it's not like anything's just going to be bolt in anymore, unless you make it bolt in. And if you have to do a little trimming like I'm doing to get everything to fit just right, that's what you got to do. Fitting a lot better already. So, the confidence of not doing it, having to learn, teach yourself, and then being in a rush and just trying to figure out, like, okay, I'll fix it later. That kind of attitude has its place. Like painting this, you know, I really should paint it, and I don't think I'm going to beat this out anymore. I think if I'm going to do anything, I'll leave it and modify the exhaust. But the same flip of the coin, I'd like the deck lid to be painted to match, and that'd be the perfect time to paint both at the same time. And but then part of me wants to just wait and paint the whole car at once. When that's going to happen, I don't know. So once everything gets sit down where it needs to be, then I'll get this seal in a neutral position where it fits over this. I don't know if this is called a breastplate tin or what it's called, but I'll call it a breastplate tin for now. I'll get it to where the seal is fitting where it should be, and then I'll mark the top of this seal so that way I can weld on that seal retainer. See, I got plenty of play here. I wonder if that's showing up. Yeah, I got plenty of gap right here. It's over on the sides where it's really tight. I can't even fit a screwdriver in this side. So I'll have to do some more fitting. It's like, you know what, like this hole doesn't even line up, it's so far off. But if I can get the rest of the holes to line up, I'd rather drill another hole in the head tin and put a rivet nut in there. This side's lining up. It's just really tight over in this corner. Looks like this side is double walled. I might have to beat this in a little bit farther to get some clearance. This side I have about up to 1/4 inch. So it's getting there. I think this part's looking good. I'm going to pull this back out, gain some more clearance there. I'll have to put in some pictures of this when I first had it in the car. Man, it was looking good. Not so much anymore. And this is part of the problem too when you're dealing with these aftermarket MP tin or Chinese tin, whatever you want to call it. You have to fit them to the engine. I had to do a little bit of work to the fan shroud and to the cylinder head tins to get them to fit, because they're not bolt on. And then again, it's a stroker too, so it's a little bit different than your average 1600. I have gotten lucky with them just bolting on. Like on my supercharged engine, I had a same fan shroud. Hopefully this little job will be able to get in there. I don't like using my body hammers for beating on stuff this hard, but fits a lot better, but got a little bit more to go. Right down this area now. Now I'm getting to the point of what's going to be easier, to try to bend all this metal back or reshape the edge of this tin. So I'm going to put some screws in this and see how far off we are. Yeah, that sucker's pretty tight. I don't know how well that would fit with that seal, because that's going to add some thickness. Right in the center, that'll be fine. This side's fine. It's all over here. I'll just reshape this metal on this. It's probably gonna need a paint job anyways when it's all said and done. And make this thing fit like it was factory as best I can. It's real important on these engines. Make sure that they're sealed off so none of that hot air comes up and recirculates. Being air cooled. I have to go take this sucker out to the stump, beat that thing down. So here's how the edge is looking so far. You can kind of see my line there that I made, and it's kind of bananaed because I've had to rebend it, so I've started trimming off this lip, and got to go do some reshaping. But you know what? This is paint that it's spray paint, but I baked it, and man, it is just, it's tough. So I gotta love that. You know, when you bake that paint on, it really sticks even with beating on it. So I'm going to get this thing straightened out the rest of the way, and we'll put you guys back on here when it's done. Alright, here's how it turned out. Not too bad for an amateur. Still has a little bit of banana into it, but not bad. I guess this side does too. Could have left a little more meat on there, but, well, is what it is. Alright, let's see how it fits now. Took roughly, I don't know, between an 1/8 and a 1/4 inch off. I can already tell that's fitting a hell of a lot better. I think that is going to be the ticket. So right here it's going to have to be pretty much even with this lip. That's that mark. Next time I pull this off, I can weld that piece in, fit that to the body. I'll have to scribe that down so I know. I'll do that later though. Scribe it. So when I grind it, or I could tape it, we'll figure that out when I get there. So I think that's going to call this video quits for today. That fits a hell of a lot better than it did. Making progress. Making progress. Always a good thing. So it's kind of sitting back there again. Good feeling. Moving forward. So I think the next video's on the bug. I'm going to probably pull the fenders out, start working on that exhaust over here, and possibly remaking the primary from cylinder number 1 down to the collector, and get that fitting a little bit better than it is, because even though I got a little bit of gap, I don't want to do this shit again if I go to spray. Granted, it was rubbing up against there before, all that heat. I could do exhaust wrap, but I really don't want to. I'd rather make it so I have more clearance with the pipe and go from there. So if the next video's on the bug, it's on the bug. If not, it's going to be on the old S10 again. I got a few parts to put on that. I have that locker to put in. As you might be able to see, it's been raining. So I have the locker to put in on that and some cow tracks. Might as well have some fun when it's raining out, you know what I mean? Anyways, everybody, thanks for tagging along. I know that this has been a long-ass video, and I'm going to have a bunch of editing to do. But as usual, thanks for watching, thanks for subbing, and until next time, we'll catch you guys on the flip side.